Looking back on the week that was and forward to the week ahead. It's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Here are your hosts, Brian Drake and Dwain McFarland.
All across the fantasy universe, it's draft season, specifically best ball draft season, and it's the Fantasy Football Hustle. I'm Brian Drake, joined alongside PFF's Dwain McFarland, and we're doing a best ball puppy draft over on Underdog Fantasy, and you can see it right here on our YouTube page. Dwain and I are in the same draft. These things go hot and heavy here. So, Dwain, I'm at the 1-9. Looks like you are on the turn at the 1-12. So we've got a second, again, literally a second because these things fly. But you've been doing a lot of these puppy drafts?
I've been doing a few. So I think I'm to the point now where I pretty much have the week 17 schedule memorized, so I can use that for tiebreakers, on any of the players that I'm taking, especially, later in the draft. I've drafted a lot from down on this end. I'm ready to draft more from the other end. I had an awesome draft. What was it, Friday maybe? I got Jonathan Taylor at the 3 spot. I came back and was able to set up a lot of nice stacks and everything. So we'll see how this goes, but I just love doing them. Hey, we get to draft, right?
Absolutely. Draft's going to start here in a second. The best thing about Underdog is we can help you make some money here. We can get you in and save you a ton of dough. So what we want you to do is go over to underdogfantasy.com. Use our promo code HUSTLE. On your initial deposit, we're going to save you, or we're going to double your draft up to $100. If you put in $100, I'm going to put $100 in. It's not out of my pocket, but hey, you got to go with us here. So put your initial deposit in, use promo code HUSTLE. We're going to double it up to $100. You can play in any of these tournaments, Puppy, Best Ball Mania 3, whatever else they're doing on Underdog. It is a fantastic site. We're so happy to be partnered with them. Promo code HUSTLE. We'll beat you over the head with that all day long. And the draft is off and running here. I'm
at pick 8, actually, Drake.
Oh, you're at pick 8?
I'm right in front of you, man.
Oh, great.
So let me know who you want.
By you. All right, so you're up.
Yeah, so I'm up. This is pretty easy for me. I'm going to go ahead and draft Stephon Diggs here in the first round. Like the running backs, but I want to go ahead and get one of the top receivers. They just go so fast on Underdog. I do think people sometimes overlook how valuable the running backs can be in a half point, versus, we value receivers a lot because you have to start 3 and you get a flex. But at the same time, half point running backs can still be very valuable.
I'm a big fan of Dalvin Cook this year. There's a lot of hype about what he's going to do in this new offense. Maybe he'll catch more passes. He could be like Alvin Kamara, I was going to say without the criminal background hanging over his head, but he has that too. So I like Dalvin Cook. I like him as a guy who can give me a nice floor every single week. He's going to be, probably when all the dust clears, Dwayne, he'll be a top 10 running back at the end of the season. To get that in the first round, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. And so one thing I've been doing in these, just getting better at like being in the flow of the draft. And so you have to be careful. So the only way I use my queue right now is once I've picked a player. Once I pick Stephon Diggs in the first round, automatically I start filling my queue with any potential stacks. So when you look at week 17, they play the Bengals. So I've already got Joe Burrow, T. Higgins. Obviously I have Josh Allen over in my queue. It's on you. So let's let you make your pick. We can talk more about this when it goes back the other way.
I was hoping to get CD Lamb here, but he's not. So I'm going to go kind of old school here. I'm going running back start with DeAndre Swift. So I'm going to start Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift. And I think receiver doesn't fall off a cliff as fast as wide receiver. So I think, especially in a best ball, like I can find some receivers to give me good weeks later. Now you're on the clock. This thing's just goes so damn fast.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and take Aaron Jones. So my first 2 picks, a big part of it is I love their schedules down the stretch. So for Green Bay, over the last 3 weeks, as you're trying to advance through these, and the main thing for the puppy or for Best Ball Mania is really the last week, because that's when you get thrown in a bigger pool, of players. Up until then, you're still in smaller, groups that you're trying to advance through, right? But still, if you can get stacks you like the Packers get the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Vikings. So those teams also have a lot of players that I like later. And then whenever you look at what I did with Buffalo, you get the Dolphins. Chicago's not great, but you get that matchup against Cincy at the very end. And so obviously I've got the Bengals in my queue right now, and now I've got to start queuing up, especially I'm going to get the Vikings over into my queue because Minnesota plays Green Bay in Week 17.
Oh, if only you had Dalvin Cook on your roster.
I'd rather it be Justin Jefferson, but I would take either. Yes, if you got to start with those two, it'd be pretty crazy.
Look at how many teams here. 1, 2, 3, 4 teams started wide receiver to start that, to start this draft. Is this something you're seeing a lot in these best ball drafts?
See it a ton, and it's a reason why I don't usually start running back. I will.
Mm-hmm.
I've started with 3 running backs, before.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just really over on Underdog, it's the way it goes, man. They get pushed up.
Yep. And I was listening to a podcast the other day with Sean Siegel, who we've never had on the pod. We should get him on sometime. The founder of the Zero RB. And he was even talking about, depending on certain kind of drafts, he's like, it's okay to be like his handle, which he doesn't use anymore, FF_contrarian. He's like, it's okay to be different, and people are going to go all this way, and there's good reason to go the opposite way if you can make a compelling argument. And at the end of the day, if you're just taking good players, you don't need a rigid strategy in these things. It's like, I must get this guy, and I must get this guy, and I have to go with this format. Like, no, you don't. Take good players. It's fantasy football.
Honestly, a lot of these people just talking about, hey, this is the kind of construction you have to have. Like the data sample we have really on what wins is so small.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways, that you can do this. Like I am a believer. I don't like to have 3 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends. There's certain things I try not to do, but it doesn't mean I won't ever do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly something that I'll consider. And like you said, early in the draft, like my strategy is to really let value drive. Now, there's not a lot of value coming to me right now. I'm going to be at pick 32. And right now, like Josh Allen's still sitting there. I obviously will take him if he's available. He'll probably leave the board because this guy doesn't know what to do. He's about to time out. Josh Allen will go off the board. But usually what I'm doing is I'm looking at the value versus ADP, and not just my ranks, because the way you can build a lot of different teams over on Underdog is really just by, sometimes you're just maximizing what you're getting with ADP. There may be certain players falling in ADP that you just don't like, and that's fine. You can avoid them. But overall, like usually my first 4 or 5 picks, if I can, like say I knew Josh Allen would go off the board, right in front of me, which is fine. But I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm going to go with Michael Pittman as somebody I've been wanting to draft. So I'm going to go ahead and get him over on a team.
I like it. So quickly look at.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm just looking at mine. Some
Mahomes,
Herbert, Lamar, running back wise. Who's up there? Yeah, I don't like any of these guys here. Brown. Let's see. You know what I might do here? I'm going to take Kyle Pitts. So I'm still playing this kind of, I'm pushing some of the receivers down the board, different from everybody else. And I'm going to try to be real strong weekly at running back and tight end.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed when drafting at this end that I've now become conscious of, and I'm trying to be careful with, is whenever you are drafting for value, you can quickly all of a sudden look up and all the players you have are on shitty teams. Like you'll look up and you're loaded with Jets, Panthers. It's really more like you end up with the Jets, you end up with the Lions, you end up with the Falcons. And also a lot of those games don't stack well at the end. So I'm not against taking those players, and I'm still taking them. I'm just now conscious of it. I'm now like, okay, I don't want to look up at the end and my whole team is full of players from bad teams. I'm okay having a few, right? Yeah. I just don't want the whole roster to be that. So something for you to be aware of.
Absolutely right. So I'm back on the clock, and to fall into that trap, you look on the board. McLaurin's there, DK Metcalf. These guys are all awful. I don't want anything to do with them. Let's see what kind of quarterback I could get here. Man, I'm down on it. I am going to take, before I time out. I got him. I'm taking Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I like Robinson. He's really starting to steam up the boards. So it's one of those picks where it's like I want to get him, but now it's like his price is moving up so much. It's like I haven't been getting him, now I haven't done a ton of these, but even 2 weeks ago, you jump in one of these and it was easier to get Allen Robinson than it is today. But man, I love, whenever you look at Robinson, make sure if you can, think about the Charger stacks later. You get that Rams Chargers game in the last game of the season. I went ahead and went with Deontay Johnson there. Again, on a team that we're not crazy about the quarterback situation. This is probably the first year the Steelers aren't a 500 football team. But Deontay's good enough, like, where he's going. I'm still going to go ahead, and add the receiver. So at this point, my roster is Aaron Jones with Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, and Deontay Johnson. Don't have a quarterback, don't have a tight end yet.
I was actually going to look at something you were just talking about for maybe a little article or Twitter thread where you look at, teams win percentage last year, fantasy points, projected win totals this year. And it's very easy to see, like you were referencing, don't take players on all these shitty teams. And
it's a real trap at this end that you and I are at. Like I look at a lot of people's teams at the end of the draft. So it's not just me. It was happening to me. It happened to me live on a stream with Ian. And I was just honest with the audience. I was like, my roster sucks.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point. It really is.
It didn't suck. It was fine, but it was not balanced enough from a standpoint of winning teams versus losing teams, and I don't want to be overloaded with a bunch of players on teams that I don't think can win, because if you're winning, you're scoring touchdowns, and touchdowns are huge, for fantasy football. So yards per attempt passing is the number one stat that correlates to winning from an individual player perspective, right? So a lot of times those teams that are losing, they just can't throw the ball as well. They'll still throw it a lot because they're trailing all the time, but the quality of the targets, it's just not there. You're not getting the quality.
All right, so we're cruising through round 5 right now. Man, these things go so fast. Again, we want you to go over to underdogfantasy.com. Use promo code HUSTLE. We're going to double your initial entry, up to $100. Dwain's back on the clock. Travis Etienne goes off right before him. So, Dwain, you're on the clock. Who are you thinking?
Lamar Jackson, who I'm stacking in my Week 17 game versus Deontay Johnson. So those are simple little tiebreakers, right? I was already thinking I want the big playmaker here. If Rashad Bateman comes back to me, I'll stack him too. If not, it's okay. I already have a stack in the game of Lamar versus Deontay.
Try to see who I like here. Any of the running backs? I don't like any of these guys. Oh, crap.
I figured you were going Kyler.
Crap, I timed out.
Got it. So you're still learning, Drake. I had to do this. I've done several on the air now. It's
well, the problem is
it's a beast.
We're sharing my screen. So for the listeners out there viewing this, you see the full draft board. So you can see, guys, what's going on. That's my screen. So I don't go to my queue until literally I'm on the clock. So I'm doing this for you, listeners.
You can solve that. So you have 2 monitors, right?
I do. Please tell me how.
So you can pop that screen out into its own screen. So basically, when you go to click on that draft, if you right click it, you can hit it. Yeah, you can hit it to open up as its own screen.
Ooh.
And that way you can have your queue up over on another screen.
Oh, thank Jesus it happened.
There you go, man.
Because my God. Because this was well, it would already be a bad draft anyways with me doing it, but it was about to get a lot worse. Yeah, I hate a Chris Godwin pick there. I would not have taken Chris Godwin, who may end up on the pup list. Not somebody I'm looking to draft, especially in the 5th round of a best ball draft. All right, so I'm going to be coming up here in a minute, and with my receivers, Godwin and Allen Robinson, I mean, I can, let's see. Brady's still there. Stafford's still there. I could probably even wait on those guys, but you can get much more upside, I think, with the Kyler, Jalen Hurts, and Kyler just went off the board.
Yeah, Kyler or Jalen would be, if I'm going quarterback here, if I'm you. The nice thing with Jalen is your stacks can still set up. You could still end up with a Devonta Smith. You could get a Dallas Goedert. I know you already have Pitts, so that's probably not like the ideal thing you want to do right now, but it could still work.
What I like to do, and if I can get him, I'm going to take Jalen Hurts here, is just even if you play him naked, it doesn't matter because they spread the ball around so much, and he can just win as kind of this unicorn. It doesn't really even matter. You don't need, oh, good. The guy took Darnell Mooney. So I can take Jalen Hurts.
Boom.
And I think Jalen Hurts, we kind of talk down him a lot, and you're up on the clock here, but I think he can really improve. Nobody talks about like, hey, he can improve. It's like, oh, he stunk last year. Well, people can get better. You're not always what you are. 10 seconds for old Dwaino here, and he goes rookie wide receiver Drake London out of the Atlanta Falcons. Is he your wide receiver 1 for all the rookies this year?
No, actually, I like Burks, but I've been getting plenty of Traylon. I like Traylon's Week 17 game better. It's the Cowboys. But I'm also playing the game of ADP, right? I only get to build these so many ways, and so you don't want to be reaching all the time. You don't want to be a slave to ADP. You don't want to just be stuck to it. But I tried. It's definitely still part of my process, and so London's a little bit harder to get than Traylon Burks. He goes off the board at pick 65 or 68 usually. Burks is around 72. So, and I mean, those are just their averages. They can obviously take swings from there. But yeah, so with London, I considered Elijah Moore as well. But I just went ahead and went with London on this one. And so it's a Cardinals opportunity, on the Week 17 game. So there's just some other options I like that I could still get off of the Cardinals, even if it's like a Darrell Williams or somebody like that later for that could potentially end up being, a nice matchup.
I'm going through my queue here. I'm trying to rapidly throw some players in that I like. But we're happy you guys are hanging out with us again. If you're digging what we do here over on the Fantasy Football Hustle YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe, comment on the videos. Let us know what you think. If you're like, oh, Drake, your team's the best, like you're the smartest fantasy guy out there, you're probably drunk at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning. But leave us those comments. We love to interact with you guys here. Hit us up on Twitter at Drake Fantasy, at Dwain McFarland, at FF Hustle. We're going to be doing these all summer long, saving you cash, promo code HUSTLE, doubling that entry up to $100. So, man, there's a team here on the turn. Whoever picked 12th, he has started 5 straight wide receivers. Adams, Lamb, Moore, Waddle, Bateman, and then threw in Josh Jacobs. So I think with the way quarterbacks fall, you can absolutely do that. And then you just kind of cherry pick some, lesser known running backs, and you'll be all right with that squad. And you've got some guys with some blow up potential weeks: Adams, Lamb, Waddle.
Yeah,
it's not the worst strategy.
No, you can do it. And there's not been a ton of value falling in this draft. This is really the first spot where there actually is some value still sitting here on the board. I'm just looking right now. Like Thielen went off, which really sucks. That was a reach for that person, reaching on Thielen, because Thielen was the pick I wanted just because it stacks up with Aaron Jones. But it's okay. I could look at Irv Smith. I can look at somebody else later. Right now, honestly, like Elijah Mitchell and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are sitting here. I need a running back too. They're both, if Elijah Mitchell gets to me as ADP, and I knew he wouldn't, because these people, and anytime you get a value that big and somebody's eventually just going to time out. Right. And it's automatically the first pick, just go unless they have their queue set up different. But to me, that was an easy pick, taking Elijah Mitchell there. And so I'm going to go ahead and get Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I think this is another reason that you can sit back and wait on running back. Like I've got Aaron Jones and now I've got CEH as my RB2. We'll see what you want to do here, Drake.
Right. What am I going to do here? I was going to take CEH, honestly, if he was there. So I'm looking at wide receiver. Some of my guys here. This is going to set up. I'm going to take, this might sound crazy, I'm going to take Russell Gage right here. And then if we come back around, I want to see, I might be able to get Brady. And then I can have Brady, Godwin, Gage.
Yeah,
and maybe even down the line, I can get Gronk.
Well, we'll both be racing to Gronk then. Gronk's pretty much a player I take every draft. Just because he's so damn far down the board.
Yeah, he's tight end 11. His ADP is 124. My God. So, I mean, you're getting him another 20 picks later in this draft. We'll see how it goes. It'll be the race for you and I. And Tom Brady goes off right after I take Russell Gage. Son of a bitch.
And that's why you have look, setting up the stacks are so hard here. It's so hard to set them up and make it all work out. That's why I make the stacks like it's my secondary prerogative. I want it to work out. And there are definitely ways you can draft, but I never want to be reaching just to set my stack up. I just don't want to, because with a lot of these quarterbacks you really like, you got to reach like a round. So I just try to find a way to pivot. Remember, there are other ways to stack, your roster, to think about different correlations with players other than just quarterback. It may actually help you because you do already have one quarterback. And so now I think that just frees you up to think about, things a little bit differently.
Yeah, I'll be on the clock next. See, there's a part of me here where I'm like, you know what? I could take Hawkinson, and then way later on, you can get Goff for free. And then I would have Swift, Hawkinson again. But do you want guys on these shitbox teams? No. No, you don't. Matthew Stafford still there.
Yeah, it's okay to have a few of those players. You just don't want, a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're at pick 88. There's the value hasn't been falling to our picks. The value's been pretty much getting snatched right in front of our picks.
So Hawkinson went right in front of me. So I decided to go with Goddard because I've got, like I said, you've got Hurts. So I got a little mini stack there. And if Dallas Goddard can stay healthy and play in this offense where the Eagles say they want to throw the ball more, why can't he be a top 4, top 5 tight end? We know he's good enough. They paid him. He's going to be featured in the offense. They don't have that many weapons. It's A.J. Brown, him, and Devonta Smith. That's it. So he could easily get, 60, 75 catches this year.
Yeah, and you get your stack. So, right, you have Hurts right now.
I do.
Don't you?
Yep.
Yeah. No, I like the pick, getting the stack, even though you already have Pitts. But now you can be done at tight end.
Yep.
Like you don't really. There's no way I wouldn't draft 3 most likely unless there's just some sort of insane value that ends up in your lap.
Yeah, and when you look at that, I've got 2 guys who on a weekly basis could and or should be top 5 tight ends. So, again, that's what you're looking for. I like taking my chances with Pitts and Goddard week to week versus, you're rolling, we like Irv Smith, but when you're putting like Noah Fant and Evan Ingram and guys like that, where, I mean, they could be tight end 40 on a week. You don't know.
Right.
All right, let's keep moving this draft board down so people can see what the hell we're doing. It's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Brian Drake, Dwain McFarland. Recording this early on a Sunday morning. I went to Paul McCartney last night. Took my kids to the artist formerly known as the Carrier Dome. 40,000 strong to see Sir Paul. So I'm a little groggy this morning, as if I wouldn't be any other time we did this draft. And so looking at Dwayne's team here, last few rounds, setting up. Look at this little KC mini stack you got here with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Sky Moore. You're a little higher on Sky Moore than I am. If he hits and he becomes maybe that second option in Kansas City, boy, really the sky's the limit for him this year.
Yeah, I just feel like, for me with Moore, he's the one I want to put my chip on in the Kansas City offense. Look, Marquise Valdes-Scantling has been around too long at this point. Has already played with Aaron Rodgers and hasn't flashed anything. No, never has flashed yards per route run. Never has flashed targets per route run. Nothing about his profile stands out. I think the Chiefs completely overpaid for the player. Could he do a little more? Yeah, but I mean, I think people that are just saying, well, he plays with Mahomes. I mean, you forget he just played with Rodgers, and all they had was Devontae Adams. Like, they would have happily spread the ball around to 2 guys if they would have had another. And I'm on the clock. I don't really like doing this particular stack with Patterson and Drake London on the same team, but it's okay just because, I mean, Patterson was the value. The ADP was 92. I was not going to overthink it. I'm getting him at pick 104. I only had 2 running backs on my roster. So there are certain times where I just don't care. Like, I don't care about the fact that, I'm going to have Drake London and Cordell Patterson on the same team. And I have enough players on teams that should be good with Michael Pittman, Stephon Diggs, Sky Moore, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Aaron Jones, Lamar Jackson. So at that point, like, I just don't worry about it as much. The other guy that I would have taken is the guy that you took right after me, which was Chase Edmonds. Yeah,
Chase Edmonds, a starting running back. He's a guy they paid a lot of money to, and that matters. Let's be honest, folks. We could say, oh, this guy's not good. This guy stinks. If you pay these guys starters money, from the GM down to the coach, these guys with personnel control, they're going to make sure these guys are on the field, at least for the first part of the season. If they fall on their face, they fall on their face. But Chase Edmonds is going to get a massive shot to be the man. And plus, he's going to catch a ton of passes. What does Tua do well? He throws the ball great in short area. So, between him and everybody focusing on Waddle and Tyreek Hill, why can't Chase Edmonds catch, 50 balls out of the backfield? And God forbid he falls in the end zone, 6-7 times.
I like him. He's really falling a little bit in ADP now. There went Gordon. Gordon was the other guy I considered just because I've got I've got Sky Moore and I've also got CEH. They play against Denver in week 17. So he was another player that was definitely just sitting right there in my queue.
All right, back on the clock to me. Let's see. I'm still banging away at wide receiver here. A couple guys on my board that I like. I want to stay away. This might be a reach, but I'm going to try it right here because there's reports coming out that Jarvis Landry is just destroying people in Saints camp. And we don't know if Michael Thomas is going to play or when he might play. Jarvis Landry, professional receiver. He's instantly the wide receiver one on there over Chris Olave in my mind. So if you can get Landry and Michael Thomas is still doing Michael Thomas things, hey, you got a wide receiver one in the 10th round.
Yeah, I mean, I like Landry, and it's to your point, like we just don't know what's going to happen, with Jameis. I went ahead and went with Tyler Boyd. So Boyd is just the game stack with Stephon Diggs. So this is a player sitting in my tier. The ADP was right on him, not forcing it. His ADP is 111. I got him pick 113. But that gives me a bring back, in week 17. Should I get, this team luckily enough make it through, to the end, and you've got Stephon Diggs, I'd like to have somebody he's playing against. And that was really the last big option for the Bengals. Like I could obviously grab, the tight end later and Hayden Hurst. I could grab like Chris Evans, like as one of my last picks. I could do something like that. But I wanted to have a guy that I know actually is on the field and actually part of the offense. And so the last stop for that train was Tyler Boyd.
I had to get a porno bot out of our system.
Yeah, why we're really good at picking those up.
Hey, we appreciate it. So yeah, guys, if you're looking at some week 17 games to target, we're looking at Denver at Kansas City is a week 17 game. A lot of shootout potential there. Bears Lions, it could be something there. Arizona plays at Atlanta. Two teams that, one might not have a whole lot to play for. That's going to be on the fast track at Mercedes-Benz. I could see a lot of points going on there. Maybe a sneaky one, Dwain. Jacksonville at Houston.
Yeah, that would be hyper sneaky.
I like that. That's my kind of white trash process that I go through. I look at it like
I hate
17,
that game.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, if it ended up being big for you, it would be good, I guess. The problem with those teams is like, how often can you really advance with that many of their players on your roster period to even make it to that game? But the thing is, you will be differentiated, if you were to make it to the final round and that game happened to go off. Like the odds of it of going off are not big because, we don't know about the quarterback play. But Davis Mills could take a step forward. And we know that really it's time, man, I just keep getting sniped. Like I'm waiting to really do something with my Green Bay stack of Aaron Jones. The easy one for me was going to be Madison. God, that's why these things are like they're so fun just because like, every one of these is really different. But man, that was one that I wanted. I wanted Madison there. I needed a running back and it fitted what I was trying to do with the roster. So
what happens all the time in fantasy football, though, is everybody in fantasy will write the same article of like, we want the Bills-Bengals stack and the Rams-Chargers stack for week 17. It's the freaking NFL. Nothing happens the way we think it's going to happen. That Bills-Bengals game, week 17, it's going to be 4 degrees in Cincinnati with 60-mile-an-hour winds. And then all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence at Davis Mills goes off and it's 45-40. And that wins, somebody with a Davis Mills, Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins stack of ton of dough. All right, you're back on the clock.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and grab Rachaad White here. Just a huge upside pick. His ADP, it's right at ADP. I needed another back. The Bucs offense, obviously, you're happy to be a part of. They play against the Panthers later, so I could easily come back and grab like a Robbie Anderson for week 17. Like there's some easy players to pick up from the Panthers that don't go too late. Like you can get Terrace Marshall with your last pick. Nobody even knows who Terrace Marshall is anymore.
Oh God, I got him sitting on a few. Draft. Did I get him? Jahan Dotson. Just a kid I like as a rookie who I think is going to be the number 2 option for the Commanders. Carson Wentz does like airing the ball out deep. Really good player. People have I don't know if right or wrong, said, hey, he might even be better than Terry McLaurin. This is a young kid out of Penn State. So I'm going to bet on a kid who's talented on a team that doesn't have a lot of it. So we'll see with Jahan Dotson. Maybe he can have some really huge boom weeks with Carson Wentz.
He is off to a huge start right now in mini camps. Most of the mini camp news I ignore, but I don't ignore the fact that I'm not ignoring the fact that Terry McLaurin's not there. And Jahan Dotson is out there establishing rapport with the new starting quarterback in Carson Wentz. Like, that's not lost on me.
See that?
I mean,
your boy here's reading the reports. Jarvis Landry, Jahan Dotson. Look at these picks.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So, like, real quick, Drake, if we want just to kind of, I'll show viewers, like, I'll share my screen real quick. You can take that down just so they can see.
Yeah, I don't think people are riveted to my 12th round pick coming up.
Well, just kind of showing, like, here's what I'm doing. Like, I was talking about it. Like, if you look at my queue, this queue is not necessarily who I'm taking next. It's mainly to get the star showing up over here next to the names. Like, as I have, just everything maximized. I can see my roster here. I've got week 17 schedule over here. I know you're picking, so do your thing. Whoops. Week 17 schedule is over here to the right. So it's an easy way to keep up with the potential game stacks, like, as you're going, to just let them be tiebreakers. You don't have to let them, drive, your whole process. So, like, sitting here, I can immediately see, like, so my roster, I would like Isaiah Spiller, but I'm going to need to draft multiple tight ends. And so Minnesota, I'm going to go ahead and take Irv Smith because that gives me the game stack that I want. So, like, Irv Smith and Pat Freiermuth, I have right next to each other in my ranks. And so at this point in the draft, I would rather go ahead and get Irv Smith on the team to go against Aaron Jones in week 17. Irv Smith, though, obviously the number one reason I'm picking him is he's an upside young tight end, right? And it still leaves me with a chance to come back and also get Albert Okwuegbunam, which would be a stack against my Kansas City team. And now I have the profile of the tight end I want. Two young guys with big upside, could take bigger leaps forward in their offense. This is likely a 3 tight end team. We'll see. I got to keep an eye on quarterback here. It's getting pretty slim. Like, I definitely had Kirk Cousins on my mind, and that didn't work out. So we'll have to see what happens here at quarterback.
So you go Irv Smith. I go Tyler Algier, so I get another piece of that Atlanta offense. So now, again, is it the greatest thing in the world? No. But, we've got Atlanta. We were just talking about they're going to play Arizona.
You should be considering Winston too at some point.
Oh, I am.
Because you grabbed you grabbed Jarvis.
Yeah, I want him to be one of my my second or third quarterback for sure.
Yeah, and so, I mean, for folks that haven't done Underdog, it's a pretty clean setup. Like, you got the draft going across up here. If you want the view, Drake has, you can just click here real quick. Here is how this little button here, you can pop this out into its own window. So you can,
which I didn't know until 10 minutes ago.
You can have your draft board going. And I just moved it up to a separate screen. So just kind of helping people see, like, this doesn't mean you have to use it this way. Here's the problem with this queue when you do what I'm doing. If you time out, like on my next pick, if I timed out, it's taking Hayden Hurst. So you don't want to time out. Like, I'm not using this for the queue. I'm using this to highlight over here as I'm looking at ADP, as I'm looking at my roster construction, right? Get rid of this stupid thing. You guys don't need to see that. It's just so that I'm keeping all of that in mind. And again, it's really more tiebreakers. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that. And then I just got the NFL Week 17 schedule over here because sometimes, you may forget, but it's easy. Now, as I pick a player from a new team, so Minnesota, I already had Green Bay, set up. So, I mean, you could quickly just come here. You just go there, you go to the search bar, Green Bay. I'm 2 picks away still. And here I can see the players that are still available. Boom, 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 boom. I can just throw them into my queue. This really helps in the late rounds whenever you're not really sure who to take. So it's back on me again. And did Albert O go? Damn, he did go. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and make this easy. I'm going to go ahead and take Freiermuth. He gets to play against Lamar Jackson in that last game. Not crazy about having Deontay Johnson and Freiermuth on the same team necessarily, but I'm okay with it. I mean, still a young tight end. People reached around Freiermuth. With Freiermuth still being on the board, I really thought I would still get Albert O coming back to me.
I took Robbie Anderson. Again, my team is just kind of a mishmash of random jackoffs. Again, another dude maybe on a bad team, but Robbie Anderson routinely outperforms ADP. He's probably going to be a top 30 receiver this year. They've got Christian McCaffrey back. We'll see what kind of quarterback play they get. And I'm still in the camp, Dwayne. Sam Darnold's not going to be their starter this year. They're going to have Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew, or one of these guys is going to get traded there. Somebody's going to go there. It's not going to be Sam Darnold. Their owner is too hell-bent on having a semi-decent team, and you can't waste these years of McCaffrey. You don't have many great years of him left. And you got those good receivers. So no, I'm banking on something sneaky is going to happen down the road.
Yeah, and you get the stack against the Buccaneers. So you missed Brady, but you've got Godwin and you've got Russell Gage, and now in Week 17 you get to bring back Robbie Anderson. I think it's a good pick.
Well, look at that, and I'm back on the clock again. Now I'm on the clock, and this I'm going to take just because I know I'll probably get sniped later. I'm going to take Jameis Winston there just to secure him to my roster.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and go all in on this Ravens Pittsburgh game Week 17 at this point, like just with tiebreakers. I'm just going to go ahead and grab Gus Edwards. So that gives me Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, and then I've got, from the Steelers side of things, I've got Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth. So not a game that's, who knows? Like that division could have, like you said, things work out weird. It is a division game. We'll see what happens with it. But the main thing is like you're still getting, young talented players. The thing with Gus Edwards, man, like he's going to get 25 to 30% of the carries. J.K. Dobbins is going to get 30 to 40% of the carries. Then Lamar Jackson's going to get 30% of the carries. And then we'll probably have Tyler Beatty get 10%. So it's going to be a mess. But if at any point, right, that isolates down to J.K. Dobbins is out, and in Week 17 you have Gus Edwards going with Lamar Jackson on a run-heavy team, like it doesn't have to be correlated just as a passer, right? They could score 4 rushing touchdowns, 2 for Lamar, 2 for Gus Edwards, and then Lamar throws 2. Then you're sitting on, a huge stack. So just be open to thinking about the ways that the games, could play out. And again, these are tiebreakers. I'm talking about it a lot just to try to help people think about how to kind of manage these drafts and how to use these things, to help decide which players you want to pick. Don't let it be like the driving process, but let it be part of your process.
I also have this Eagles Saints Week 17 stack going here with Goddard and Jalen Hurts, and I got Jameis Winston and Jarvis Landry. So we got some stuff cooking there. If it comes down to it, Dwayne, and I got a chance to win, I'm going to buy tickets. I'm going to drive to Philly. I'm going to go watch that game in person. And I'm going to win the puppy, and I'll run on the field naked.
So we've got 7 picks until I'm up again. My pick will be Wan'Dale Robinson if he makes it to
Oh,
me.
you bastard. I got him in my queue.
Yeah, well, I get the game stack versus Michael Pittman.
Oh, and you just went.
Yeah, see, that's the deal. As soon as you mention it, it's gone. And that's pretty much it for the Giants. I'm not going to be able to stack Pittman with anything. I had Kadarius Toney in my queue, but obviously he goes earlier. But I still need another quarterback. Daniel Jones would give me a stack against Pittman, and I could take Matt Ryan or Daniel Jones. I'm going to take one of those two at my pick. Like they're at the top of the queue. I need a second quarterback. I don't care about bye weeks for best ball. I really don't care. Like all my players could be on the same week. Don't care. Now I'm fortunate here anyway, though. Like neither one of them have the same bye. So I probably will go with Matt Ryan just to give me that Pittman stack. I like that better than the game stack against Daniel Jones. But Matt Ryan's probably going to go here. Both players in front of me only have one quarterback. He's sitting at the top of the queue.
Yeah, Matt Ryan's on the board. Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson could have a much better year than this year.
Yeah, and Zach Wilson, I take quite a bit down on this end because I end up with a decent amount of Elijah Moore or Garrett Wilson from this draft position. So I will a lot of times grab one of those guys earlier, come back, get Zach Wilson. And then like if I need a third tight end, you can just throw Uzoma, on the team, like with a really late pick.
I took Sony Michel. I have Chase Edmonds. I took earlier in round 9, come back here in round 15 with Sony Michel. I mean, I'm of the belief Sony Michel could be this kind of early down grinder or the between the tackles runner. like you said, Dwayne, we talk about scheme all the time. If they're running that Shanahan offense in Miami that we know and love, they love using multiple backs. Why wouldn't you use Sony Michel? I mean, I know they got Mostert. I don't believe Mostert's ever going to stay healthy in his career. Michel is just the best of the bunch, in my opinion.
I think he's the worst running back of the bunch, but he's the one that seems to be able to stay on the field. You know what I mean?
He fits well into my team.
Well, with Michel, we already talked about Edmonds and why we like him. Explosive playmaker, and he catches the ball, right? It's easy to fall in love with Chase Edmonds on the team he's on. Mostert is a very explosive player, but to your point, he's never able to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. Sony Michel doesn't catch the ball really well, and he's also not explosive, but he may be the one that's most likely to stay healthy. He's also the one that's most likely that if you just had to pick who's going to lead the Dolphins down the stretch and carries between the tackles, it could easily be Sony Michel.
I'm on the clock. It's at a disgusting point right now of the draft where you're just looking at a lot of big time scrubs. I'm going to bank, and God, I'm sure I'll be wrong for this, but doesn't Sammy Watkins in Green Bay just like, buddy, weren't you a first round pick? Like, just be Sammy Watkins. The Sammy Watkins we see week 1 every year. Just be him for like 7 weeks.
You pick up Sammy Watkins versus Dalvin Cook. So, like, again, that's week 17. You get Minnesota versus Green Bay. How much time? Oh, I got 10 seconds here. I got to do something.
Go. We're on the clock. My egg bake over here. My wife made this beautiful egg bake in the morning, and I haven't been able to eat it because I'm starving.
I went ahead and grabbed Hayden Hurst. So this is a 3 tight end build, 2 QB build. So Hayden Hurst and Tyler Boyd now are my week 17 options coming back against Stephon Diggs and the Bills. I need receivers here. I've got to have this last pick has got to be, or these last 2 picks. We're in round 16 for folks listening along. We've got round 17 and 18 left. So I'm really going to focus on the receivers at this point.
Look at my team here. 1, 2. I've got 2, 3, 4. I got 5 running backs, 2 of which on the same shitty Miami team. Let's see. Where's my squad here? I've got 2 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, 7 wide receivers, 2 tight ends.
I don't know if there are any sneaky Patriots you could look at. You've got because you've got Miami with Chase Edmonds. I'm just looking at your team.
Yeah, I had James White queued up. Some other guys I have in my queue, Mark Ingram, because again, what if Alvin Kamara gets suspended? Maybe you get a couple of good weeks out of him.
Yeah, your Eagles and Saints, you have a stack going to already with Landry versus. Look at all these. You're making stacks and don't even know it, Drake. Or maybe you know it and you're just being quiet.
I don't know it. It's fine. I do have the schedule up next to me.
But that's why it's a lot to keep up with on a 30-second clock. Yes. That's why I have kind of adapted the way I use the queue and everything. Is to help keep myself organized because these picks are so fast at 30 seconds. Like used to, normally I have my tiers and everything up. I've just streamlined everything for Underdog. Like I've just said, I'm not opening my tiers. I'm not, marking players off on my tiers. I know where my players are in tiers because I created them and I've spent a lot of time crafting them. But at the end of and that helps me know the players. But at the end of the day, like ADP is just going to be more important when you're drafting this fast. And so I had to figure out a way that like, okay, if I could have 2 things I'm looking at, like what are they? And then how do I bring those 2 things together? And so like the schedule, I've pretty much got in my head at this point. But sometimes like when you're on 30-second clock and you just forget, you're like, damn it. You're like, who are the freaking 49ers playing in week 17? It's like, you gotta click back over there, to remember. So I just keep it up next to me.
It's funny, the draft the last 2 rounds is really slowed down. Either people are timing out or they're on the toilet or whatever they're doing. Maybe they're at church making a pick. You ever done that? You ever drafted church?
No, I've never drafted at church.
We're gonna get that going. Dwayne's doing a reading.
We're gonna stream that.
A reading from the second book of Shanahan.
That's a good one.
Let's see. We got Hassan Haskins.
How many quarterbacks do you have? You have 2 already?
I have 2. So
I was going to say the other thing potentially for you would be Mac Jones against the Dolphins.
You know what I was going to try to take?
How many tight ends do you have? Sorry.
2.
2. Okay, so you're good. You can carry 3 of either. I don't like carrying 3 of both.
Davis Mills is still there. I still like Davis Mills a lot.
It's 2 picks from me. My pick, if they make it, is Odell Beckham Jr. just because, I mean, it's just ADP is at 184.
Yeah.
And we're sitting at pick 196. And I need a receiver. I need 2 receivers. So I'm just going to take the better player here. Hope Beckham can do something later in the season, lands with the right team. That's my wide receiver 7. I will be taking my wide receiver 8 with my next selection.
I'm going to take, I got 2 picks left. I should take a wide receiver here. Screw it. Who cares? I'm going to go. I was going to take Paris Campbell. But we were talking about Mark Ingram. I'm going to take Mark Ingram because if, let's say, Kamara gets suspended, gets hurt, something like that, that's what you're playing for here. And then at the end, just to be the smartest dumb guy in the room, I'm going to take Baker Mayfield with this last pick because I'm hoping he gets traded to Carolina and or
there you go.
Seattle.
You're pretty good at those. You know, hey, this hasn't happened, but and no one else is going to predict it, but I will, and I'm going to be right. Like that's kind of your forte.
He's not going to their OTA. You can't bring Baker Mayfield back into this room. You can't. He's not going to go back in there after all the stuff he said, all the stuff they said. You went out and you took Deshaun Watson. The team has moved on. And I had a guy arguing with me on Twitter. He's like, yeah, but what if Watson's suspended? I go, that's why they got Jacoby Brissett. Okay. They have no leverage to deal Baker Mayfield at this point, which is the problem. Because they owe him a ton of dough and they're only going to get like a 4th round pick for him. And you took Paris Campbell next. But yeah, I think Baker Mayfield between now and September is going to get traded. He's either going to be on the Seattle Seahawks or he's going to be on the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I think there's if we have to pick like the 2 quarterbacks that shouldn't be on their team when camp, is done and we're heading into the season, it's got to be Jimmy G and Baker.
Yep.
You could make an argument that Baker's the easier one to move because what team really wants to invest draft picks with the unknowns of Jimmy G's shoulder? I think that's really scaring teams away, from Garoppolo. So the 49ers are probably going to have to lessen their price. Or my thought is that's really Kyle Shanahan galaxy braining it, to the point where no one will pay enough for Garoppolo that he gets to keep him and then he can start him by week 5 when Trey Lance face plants.
True.
Man, the 49ers give up so much for Trey Lance. Like I'm fine drafting Trey Lance this year. Like all indications are it's all systems go for him. Like they've got a plan basically at this point, and the upside is absolutely huge. But man, there's still a chance that the guy's terrible. So let's talk folks through these teams here, Drake, see what we think.
Do it.
Well, I was at pick 8. Drake was at pick 9. So I started with receiver. I'm going to run through my picks. Stephon Diggs, first round, I was right at ADP. 1.8 is where, he normally goes. So I didn't really get, any kind of, big value on grabbing Diggs. I'm actually going to do it. You've got the board up. So I'm going to talk people through the positions. And my second receiver is Michael Pittman. Got him at pick 32. His ADP is 31.6. So again, basically I'm just on the nose with ADP. Like these guys were, oh crap, my thing just disappeared. I'm gonna go back in and look at it.
I still have the board up on the show.
No, it's okay. I got my team back up. It's easy to get back to. Then you got Deontay Johnson. You probably passed him just because you had already taken a receiver from or you already had one player from a team that you weren't crazy about. So I got him the pick after you. And I thought, you and I had just been talking about, not wanting to completely load a team. And it's very easy to do, folks. Like from this end of the draft, basically pick 8 on through 12. It's really easy to box yourself in to where all of a sudden you look up and you have all Jets, Falcons, Lions.
You should write an article about that. Lord knows I'm never going to get around to it. Yeah, I think you should do that.
Yeah, and it's okay to have players from those teams, but you don't want to be overloaded because also that's the range DJ Moore goes in, right? So you could look up and have DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, Elijah Moore, and Amon-Ra St. Brown all on the same team, right? And we like all those players, but do you really want 4 receivers off of teams those could all be theoretically those could all be 6-win teams.
Yeah, they're averaging
there's
14 points a week.
There's a chance the Steelers take a real, nosedive this year. But with Deontay, like too good of a talent, like for me to pass there as the wide receiver 3, come back with Drake London as my wide receiver 4, Sky Moore as my wide receiver 5. So 2 rookie, kind of some youth infusion. Atlanta, not a great team. So, I've got Pittsburgh and Atlanta. That could be a little shaky, but Drake London, I just think, has the opportunity, Drake, for 150 targets. Like it could be him and Kyle Pitts really like both at like 150 targets. And like, Cordarrelle Patterson was 75. Like that's just the way that offense could end up looking this season. There's not a lot else there. They keep adding bodies. They've brought in Brian Edwards. They already had Auden Tate, who they picked up in the offseason. They have Olamide Zaccheaus is still there. There's just not a lot, to really get that excited about in the passing game outside of those 3 names. So it could still be a funnel. Sky Moore was an upside swing, on, the Chiefs offense. It's also, was an opportunity, and just looking at my plan was to either get Melvin Gordon or to get Albert Okwuegbunam, like to help me give that backdoor kind of stack to Denver, Kansas City in week 17. That didn't work out. But I got Tyler Boyd, who does give me a bring back versus Stephon Diggs in week 17. Odell Beckham was just a value pick. I got him at pick 200, ADP of 184. I don't have OBJ on any teams yet. So this is my first exposure. Paris Campbell as my last receiver. So that's 8 receiver. It's an 8 receiver build. I also have Michael Pittman on the team and I have Matt Ryan. So that's all that was about. It was just like, okay, well, I've already got Pittman and Ryan. Why not throw Paris Campbell, on the team as well? The running backs are Aaron Jones, who I took in the 2nd round, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I'm really warming to, got him a little bit past ADP. Elijah Mitchell was 1 pick away from me at a 10.8 at a 10 pick ADP slide. Mitchell's been sliding lately in these drafts. Got Cordarrelle Patterson at a value, pick 104, ADP of 92. So one of the things I look at this team, Drake, that's a little, I'm not crazy about the way, but you can't force stuff. But I have Cordarrelle Patterson and Drake London, and I don't have a week 17 Cardinal. Like typically if I have 2 players from the same team, I'll almost always have a bring back for week 17, some way, shape, or form. I even had AJ Green in my queue and he went off the board. I had Zach Ertz in my queue. He went off the board. I had Rondell Moore in my queue. He went off the board. So every player, even those later round guys, like they just kept going right in front of me. There was really nothing I could do about it. I have a similar situation with Kansas City where I don't have a Denver bring back, and then I have my only other, double up, is with, my Steeler stuff, but I've got bring backs on it. Then my last 2 running backs, Rachaad White, who I just love as an upside pick, ADP of 132. I took him a little ahead of that. I just wanted one big swing in case Lenny Fournette goes down, Drake. Like we know that, and who knows, Rachaad White may not get the role. Tom Brady may look at him and say, you're not ready for this. Right. And we know it all goes through Brady. Byron Leftwich is the coordinator, but look, Tom Brady's the coordinator. Tom Brady is making the decisions about who's on the field, what plays they're doing. It's really all him. And so Rachaad White's definitely got to get over that hurdle, but like could be a really big pick. Gus Edwards was just a stack with my quarterback, Lamar Jackson, plus my Steelers. So I'll hit my tight ends real quick. Irv Smith, Pat Freiermuth, Hayden Hurst. I felt a need to have 3 because I didn't take one early. Every one of those picks stacks up. I love doing this with my tight ends, Drake. If I don't get a tight end early, I love swinging for upside and then stacking them. Hayden Hurst obviously doesn't have upside, but Minnesota stacks against Green Bay in week 17. Pittsburgh stacks against the Ravens in week 17. And Hayden Hurst stacks. Who does he stack against? He's my. I got Stephon Diggs. So I've got, Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst against Stephon Diggs in week 17. And again, these are all tiebreakers, folks. I got Hayden Hurst at pick 185. His ADP is 182. I didn't reach to do that. Pat Freiermuth, ADP of 125. I got him at pick 152. I got an absolute value. Irv Smith, I took it 137. His ADP is 142. So I didn't make a big reach on any of those things to make it happen. Basically tied in, I let the draft and the schedule tell me who to take at tight end. And I really like handling tight end that way, just because if you don't get one of the big guys, Drake, it's like, why not try to correlate it, right, to some other sort of value? And again, like I still went with the upside. Irv Smith and Pat Freiermuth are young. I didn't take like 3 guys that are like Hayden Hurst. I took 2 young guys. Either one of those guys could break out as a tight end. Plus, if they don't, I've got 3 guys that kind of cover my bases. throughout the season. And if I get lucky, there's some correlation at the end of the year. So, and then just finally, I've got the quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Matt Ryan.
Very nice. Good job, my friend. And taking a look at my team real quick, if you look at the quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, I have some stackability with him later. He kind of correlates with my second quarterback, Jameis Winston. They play each other week 17 in Philadelphia. So I got a couple pieces of that game. Jalen Hurts, again, though, he can be, this is a best ball. He can be a spike week guy all on his own. We've seen Jameis Winston have weeks of 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, frankly. But if he's the starter, and let's say he gets Michael Thomas back and Chris Olave, and he's got a great defense, and Jarvis Landry, who I drafted here, there's no reason to think Jameis Winston can't have some good weeks. He's not going to really do much, I don't think, with his legs, but he's a guy who, why can't he throw 40 touchdowns this year? Baker Mayfield, total shot in the dark. Hey, if some team trades for him, then it's free money, and who knows, maybe he stacks with some of my guys later. At running back, Dalvin Cook. I like Dalvin Cook. He's got a chance to be the overall RB1. So does DeAndre Swift, I think, depending on how they call plays there. These are two guys that I got that with top 5 upside as RBs. I got them both within the top 16 picks. Chase Edmonds, I paired him up with Sony Michel. So I've got, in my mind, that Miami offense, which finally has somebody with a brain running it. I think both of those guys, could have standalone value, but again, on a blow-up week, why can't Sony Michel fall into the end zone 2-3 times and catch 4 or 5 passes? Chase Edmonds, even if he doesn't score touchdowns, what if he goes out and catches 6 or 7 balls, and helps you in that regard? Tyler Algier, why can't he be the starting running back for the Atlanta Falcons? Maybe they need help on the outside, and they run Patterson more as a wide receiver versus a running back. And Mark Ingram probably should have took a wide receiver there. I had Paris Campbell queued up, but I said, let's take Mark Ingram just for you're looking at this Saints team. What if you get to that situation and Alvin Kamara goes down or he gets suspended? You never know. And now I'm rolling with the Saints.
You've got a nice, you've got 2 Saints, 2 Eagles. If that game blows up in week 17 and this team happens to make it through and make noise, and that's probably going to be a game stack that's not owned a ton, you know?
And that's what I like doing. Like everyone goes to the same game stacks all the time. Like, it's the NFL. How many times I was doing the SiriusXM show this past year, and on Sunday nights, Andrew Erickson and I would sit there and talk about the games, and we'd go through, here's the top 5 guys every week at each position. And it's always some bullshit guy. It's how many weeks we're like, hey, it's Davis Mills is the QB1 this week, or some other guy off the bench. And you're just like, who are these guys? But that's fantasy football for you. It never goes the way you think. At wide receiver.
And the way I think about the stacks too, like, look, you want the good quarterbacks. That's the easiest way to look for stacks. You want the games with the big quarterbacks. But to your point, those are the games people are really drawn to. But what I like looking at is for my early stacks, I'm not really trying to stack bad teams with my early picks. It's later, like what you did. You just threw Mark Ingram on, right? And you got, Jarvis Landry, at pick 112, so you have those 2 guys, plus you've got Winston, right? And then, you took Jalen Hurts earlier, but you just kind of made it work. It wasn't like you went into this being like, I'm putting all my chips on the Eagles and Saints. But the way that the draft worked out, and the way the AEP is and the way the board fell, like that just worked out for you. And to your point, like you could really, get lucky. Like we know the good quarterbacks are likely, the great quarterback matchups are what we want, but it is what everyone else is already doing because like you said, we've had one person writes an article or does a podcast on it, and then 40,000 other people write the same article. And that's what's happening. So it's like you want a mix of those things. You want access to those other really good game stacks, right? But you can also sprinkle in these others. And that was one of the things I really liked that you did, in the draft.
You want to talk about sprinkling in some obscurity. Chris Godwin and Russell Gage. So now I got my access to Tom Brady. And Chris Godwin's going to play this year. So it's best ball. So I timed out when I got that pick. I wouldn't have taken him. But again, we made it work. So it doesn't matter if you have 2, 3, 4 good receivers in Tampa Bay. They're probably going to come through. Week 17, Tampa Bay is at home against the Panthers. So I've got Godwin. I got Gage. I also have Robbie Anderson. And, oh, by the way, let's say Baker Mayfield gets traded there. So now I got a ton of access to this game with Tom Brady. They're probably fighting for a 1 seed or a bye in the playoffs. which would be the 1 seed. So I like that aspect of it. Let me roll down here a little farther.
I do too. I thought the Robbie Anderson pick was really good because of what you had already done with Godwin and Gage. So I thought coming back and getting that, and then you galaxy brained it at the end with Baker Mayfield, which I think is fine. Like if that does end up working, I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen at this point because that's your sweet spot, man. Like, I mean, like I've seen you just call so many of these trades.
With Sean McCoy to the Chiefs on the air.
Yeah, you called that like 2 months before it happened, I think.
I should do an article of that too. It's just wacko things, because who would have thought going into this season, if somebody wrote an article, if you're just like, Tom Brady's going to retire, then he's going to unretire, and then everybody thought Aaron Rodgers was leaving, but he's not. But Russell Wilson's going to go to Denver, and this. I mean, it's craziness all the stuff that happens. So
it is.
You can never write anything off in the NFL. Sammy Watkins, that's just a guy, again, who knows? And Jahan Dotson, rookie, he could pan out and become rookie of the year, or he could just look like every other Commander's wide receiver playing with Carson Wentz, and he sucks balls. And at tight end, I went with 2 elite guys, so I only took 2, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert, and hopefully those guys can just rock and roll for me all season.
But you only need 2 when you do that. Like I thought, so at the end of the day, like your build, you've got 3 quarterbacks, Hurts, Winston, and Mayfield. You've got 6 running backs, and then you've got, 7 receivers and 2 tight ends. Like it's really tough to squeeze in 3 tight ends, especially when you have 2 good ones when you're going with a 3 QB build. So I think, the roster construction was right. I know at the point with Ingram, you were considering potentially another receiver as well. Mm-hmm. I think you could go either way with that pick. Ingram or a receiver would have been fine. I think I like the roster. I really do. If I were to give you any like critical feedback, it would be, and this is part of just drafting more.
Please do.
It would just be to just be careful of where you're reaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we know, like the data shows, we don't want to be way ahead of ADP. It's fine. The later you get, the less that really ADP matters. But in the earlier rounds, like through the mid rounds, you just want to watch it. Like you were doing really good. Like the Algier pick, I like, but you took him almost 20 picks ahead. Sony Michel, you took, 30 picks ahead of ADP. Ingram was fine. Dotson, you took almost, you took 15 picks, ahead of ADP. Jarvis Landry, you took 25 picks ahead of ADP. So just being careful, like watching.
That's just me being smarter than the room, Dwain. Let's be honest. Call it what it is.
But the thing is, like, as we do more, right, you want to continue to give yourself opportunities to draft value and create unique teams. And so here's what I'll tell you. Like when I first started drafting, about a month ago and doing more of these, I was doing the same exact thing. I was getting myself trapped into going after these certain players just a little too much versus like kind of now how I've adapted for Underdog and the way that I'm approaching it. But I really like the construction, and I liked the logic behind all of your picks. Like I liked the logic behind the Sammy Watkins pick. I liked the logic behind the Anderson pick. I liked the Kyle Pitts pick. I liked even coming back with Goddard, knowing you had Pitts, because really, you had Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith and AJ Brown were obviously long gone. Mm-hmm. And the only other option you have there is Goddard. And it meant that you didn't need 3 tight ends. So I thought that you did a lot of things really right in the draft that I liked. I liked the construction. Just watch the ADPs a little bit.
This is why I pay you to be my friend, Dwain. Say nice things about me.
All right, Drake, anything on mine?
All right, let me
as we wrap it. Drake's like, I'm going to find something here to say. I'm going to punch McFarland in the face here.
Let me see. So yeah, I mean, I love Diggs, Aaron Jones. It's funny to me, and we could do a whole show on this, is, some people are way off Aaron Jones. Some people, I know Graham Barfield is a big proponent of Aaron Jones this year, so I think he's going to get more work, maybe out of the slot, and just seeing balls out.
I don't think it'll be in the slot, but it will be passing downs.
Sure.
Like it's going to be from the backfield. They're not the biggest fake news ever at this point of year is teams saying, well, yeah, we're running both running backs out there together. No, you're not. You're not gonna. No, we've heard that from coaches. I remember when the Dallas Cowboys used to say that about Emmitt Smith when they brought in Chris Warren. Oh, we're going to run both running. No, you're not. You got, then you lose a blocker if you're going to run. And if you're running a pass play, do you really want 2 running backs out there on the field? Probably not. You're not going to want that. AJ Dillon, he can run a swing pass route, but it's not like he's going to attack a linebacker and break him down. So I love Aaron Jones because of that. I think it's just going to be a huge upside receiving year for him.
And I like that you took him there because boy, oh boy, it would be real easy for someone to start Stephon Diggs and then say, hey, I've got my choice of going right after your Jones pick was Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel, Tyreek, AJ Brown, T. Higgins. It'd be real easy for somebody to do that. But if say you took Deebo there, like you did in a draft we did the other night. So you start, imagine this Diggs Deebo coming back, your next running back. I don't know if you even would have taken a running back.
I wouldn't have.
You were considering Josh Allen. I mean, now you look at your running back room gets real shaky. And now your RB1, you're looking at CEH.
Right. Yeah.
You got in round 7.
Yeah, exactly. So, and look, this is the beauty of just grabbing one. At least get one. And you've got Aaron Jones as your RB1. And now look, you get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Cordarrelle Patterson. Those two guys can basically fight each other for the RB2 spot or a flex spot.
We'll live stream that fight.
Right? Yes. And then Rachaad White, you get your upside pick. Gus Edwards is a guy that's going to be in a committee that just nobody wants to draft right now. Gus Edwards is like, I love Gus Edwards on best ball. I don't want to deal with Gus Edwards in a week to week where I got to choose when to play the guy. When is he going to score a touchdown? But in this kind of format, I really like him. So yeah, appreciate the thoughts on the Jones pick, but just like big picture, like the folks, you get one, you leave yourself a lot of flexibility. The backs kind of went early. Normally one of those backs that, well, it can be pretty close, where those backs that were coming back, Barkley off the board, Javonte Williams off the board, Nick Chubb off the board, James Conner, all off the board right in front of me, which enabled me to get Pittman. But anyway, you keep going, Drake. This is your pros show.
Yeah, and looking at Cordarrelle Patterson, and I mean, we're talking about a guy last year who just had the season of seasons. And really, it's like, what can he do this year? Is he going to have 153 rushing attempts again? I don't know. Probably not. That seems to be why they brought in Algier, but they let Mike Davis go. Is he going to rush for 6 touchdowns? I don't know. Probably not. But what if he does? What if they still use him in that role again? He's kind of, a lowercase Deebo Samuel. He was Deebo Samuel last year before Deebo Samuel.
Deebo. So with Patterson, it's easy. A guy that can catch passes that's still explosive. He doesn't have a lot of, even though he's older, he doesn't have all the mileage a lot of these other backs have. So for me with Patterson, it's like, I think he gets more involved in the passing game this year. I think the clear 1A, 1B will be Pitts/London. But I think Patterson at the running back position, right? We're not having to draft him as a receiver. I think he's probably a lock for, 75 targets, Drake. Like he's a lock for that, but he could catch 75 balls. Like, he may get 100 targets and catch 75 of them, or he may get like 110 targets, something like that. So there's room, for Patterson to do a lot of different things. I tend to agree with you. I don't think they're going to want to run him as much as they did last year, but if Tyler Algier face plants, right, and he is a round 5 pick, and who else do they have? Damian Williams. Damian Williams is an interesting name too to keep in mind. Just late in drafts, like he could easily beat out Tyler Algier, right? To be the
coaches
starting
love
back.
That guy. They love him. They put him on the field because he's going to block, and especially down there where you've got a couple of crappy, where you got Mariota who sucks, and then you got a rookie behind him in Ritter. So I mean, you don't know. They're not going to want to put a rookie out there. Imagine if you got to run rookie. I mean, Jesus Christ, just forget about all these guys. But I want to talk about this interesting tier of receiver that happens around round 9, 10, 11. It's a lot of slot guys too. So in that tier, Robert Woods to me started the tier. So in round 9, there was MVS, Tony, Garrett Wilson, Olave, Robert Woods. And then it gets real interesting to me. Michael Gallup coming back off the injury. Chase Claypool, a guy I know you're very high on this year. I took Jarvis Landry. You took Tyler Boyd. And then look down the line here. Watson, Galladay, Crowder, Jamison Williams, even Devontae Parker coming back, who I'm higher on than most. Of that little group of guys, so it went Gallup, Claypool, Landry. You took Boyd. If all 4 of those guys are available, who would you have taken? Would you still taken Tyler Boyd?
Well, I was there because they were all close as far as, ADP. And Boyd I just wanted access to one of the main Bengal receivers, right? I know he's behind Jamar Chase, and I know that he's behind, T. Higgins, but they run 11 personnel all day, every day, right?
Yeah.
So he's on the field. I wanted, I didn't just want Hayden Hurst in my bring back with Stephon Diggs. So again, that's how I use the tiebreakers. Now, if I didn't have Stephon Diggs on the team and you were just asking me which one of those receivers I would have taken, it would have been Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool is my favorite out of that group just because I think he brings the most upside. He's being forgotten. He was an early breakout as a rookie, still had some good underlying metrics last year, despite the fact that, he was only a wide receiver 4 instead of a wide receiver 2 in PPR formats. But man, Claypool, explosive young player. He's got a body on him that a lot of other guys don't, right? He's a guy that could still be like a 5-tool player, right? He can get deep. He can win contested passes. He can work as a possession receiver. You get him involved in the running game. You can get him involved in little quick pop plays where you still let him run after the catch. Like, he's just a unique athlete, and you get him way later than where you're having to take Deontay Johnson. Now, Johnson's way more proven. Deontay Johnson is proven he can demand targets the way that Claypool hasn't necessarily done yet in his career. Claypool's shown us that he can demand targets at a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 level already, which is enough with his playmaking ability. But man, if he takes a step forward, Drake, like Claypool, I think, is a guy that people are really snoozing on this season. He often gets, the 10th round in a format like this where receivers fly off the board early.
Yeah, he does for sure. And he sticks around as a guy. Like you said, he profiles to be a top 15 guy, and he's going to run the football too. They're going to give him some jet sweeps. They're going to get the ball into his hands. I wanted to talk about this Matt Ryan pick. So goes to Indianapolis. Now he's going to be on a team that's going to have a much better offensive line. He's going to have a great running game behind him. You did manage to get Michael Pittman earlier in round 3. Now, everyone's going to talk about, Matt Ryan is a professional quarterback, blah, 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 blah. Hasn't thrown for 30 touchdowns since 2018. The last few years, 26, and 20 last year. What kind of bounce back do you think he can have? I think, to be honest, the run game helps him a lot because now it's going to set him up to be able to do play action, and everything's not on his plate. So Matt Ryan, a sneaky guy in round 15 who maybe he has kind of a late career resurgence and throws 30, 35 touchdowns for an Indianapolis team that probably is the best team in that division.
Well, Matt Ryan's 2 career years have come in years where he didn't actually drop back to throw the ball all the damn time. It was actually in the Kyle Shanahan offense, doing what you just mentioned, using play action, hitting big plays down the field. Now you had Julio Jones, and in that last year, Calvin Ridley was also a rookie to go along with Julio. So he doesn't have that level of weapons here, right? In Indy, like we really love Michael Pittman, but we know he's not Julio Jones, right? He can't do the things after the catch, that Julio can do. He's just not the same athlete. We like Michael Pittman a lot, right? Checks a lot of boxes as a young
receiver. Still 6'4", runs a 4.5, big dude.
Yeah, we like him. Like, he's good. But like for me with Matt Ryan, like, not a guy that I'm going to be taking a lot, but when I already had Pittman, that's when I'm going to get my exposure to Matt Ryan. And I'm not going to take Paris Campbell very often, but Campbell is working as he does every preseason at this point when he's still healthy. He's the starting slot receiver for the Colts. The Colts are going to run a lot of multiple personnel, so you're going to see plenty of 12 and other things like that. So they're not going to be like at 70%, 11 personnel, or like 80% like the Bengals and Cowboys. Mm-hmm. But getting Paris Campbell at the very end is just a bet that, well, if all of a sudden the Colts offense does kind of go ham in the passing game, well, you've got your bases covered with Ryan, Pittman, and Campbell. And Campbell, it's also just, looking at, the way that the draft played out. My original plan was coming back. When I took Matt Ryan, my pick there was going to be Wan'Dale Robinson and then come back around the turn with Daniel Jones. And that was going to be to stack Daniel Jones and Wan'Dale Robinson against Pittman in week 17. That didn't work out that way. So I just had to shift gears, and I went ahead and stacked Ryan with Pittman. And then that's what led ultimately to Paris Campbell later. I love getting access to players like Paris Campbell, Drake, only when they correlate and make sense, right? It's not like I'm going to have Paris Campbell on, 20% of my teams. Like, he is a player that I used to like, and I know he's still young, and injuries have robbed his young career. And I still think he could end up being a good player, but I'm not putting a lot of chips on him. I'm just doing it in scenarios like this when it makes sense. And I love that because it helps you just sprinkle small exposure to other players. And what you're doing is you're like, and I get tired of hearing this, but it's like the whole when you are right argument. You're kind of multiplying it. Like, if you do happen to be, Matt Ryan does hit well, why not go ahead and have Paris Campbell on this team?
Mm-hmm.
Because if he does, it means Paris Campbell probably was a big part of it, right? Because it's not, I mean, Alec Pierce could be a part of it. He's a rookie. Naheem Hines could be part of it. But it's very logical that, if there's all of a sudden, Matt Ryan has this big efficiency year, like you could see Paris Campbell being the number 2 weapon, right, in the passing game, and you get him for absolutely free.
Yeah. And guess what? Week 17 at the Giants. I mean, this could be a dead Giants team who's already got their golf clubs packed.
Which we hope not, because what that would ultimately mean is just let Jonathan Taylor run. It's like we need the Giants to be playing for something at that point. That's the scary part of messing around at all with the Colts, Giants stack. But hey, look, we saw the Colts come out and they couldn't run the ball against the Jaguars last year in the last game to try to get into the playoffs. So like to your point earlier, weird crap happens
all the time. I mean, nobody's looking at this 49ers at Raiders game. Imagine that's Trey Lance, and now you've got in here with Derek Carr with all his new weapons out there in the desert. I mean, that could be a crazy game. That's what I'd like to do, is just do one of these best balls where you just take the worst stacks possible. Like, let's take a Jets Seahawks stack and just really go game theory on that.
The thing is, you don't have to force it. You just let the draft fall to you. Basically, you're sitting there, you're drafting, all of a sudden you're in a spot where you take Elijah Moore in the 6th round. Now you do what I was showing you. You go over, you add Kenneth Walker to your queue. You add Rashad Penny to your queue. You add Tyler Lockett to your queue. You add Noah Fant to your queue. Probably not adding the quarterbacks because we don't know which one's going to be the starter, but all those other pieces are likely to be on the field. And then as the draft's going, you've got you're not drafting from your queue. You're starring those guys so that they're showing up over in your ADP list. You've still got all the positions. You're looking at them, and you got a tiebreaker situation. You're looking at 3 players that are all really close, and you're like, oh man, I've got Elijah Moore. I'm going to go ahead and take Kenneth Walker here, right? And then it comes back later, and you're sitting there, and you're like, I could take Garrett Wilson here in the 9th round. I know, so go ahead and do it. You take Garrett Wilson. You got Elijah Mitchell. You also now have Zach Wilson starred in your queue. You come back, a few rounds later, you grab Noah Fant, or Rashad Penny, and then you get Zach Wilson. Now all of a sudden, that game stack, you have it. You did not reach for it. It absolutely fell in your lap. But to your point, if it hits, especially if that game stack itself, Drake, is built around a solid roster of players on other good teams, right? So you're kind of throwing a chip out there on a couple of maybe bad matchups in week 17, but it's all stacked up. You've got other good, you've got your chief players on your team. You've got some bucks on your team. That's the way I like to do it. Where I've seen people go wrong is if they come into the draft absolutely trying to force that strategy. Because then what happens is you go back into the reaching game. You start thinking, oh God, I got to get it. The other thing to think about, like there's all sorts of ways to stack these games. I just mentioned it. Like it could be Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny on the same team. There's not going to be a lot of people do that, Drake. But if the Seahawks are in a game where they're actually scoring a lot of points, their running game is probably going well, right? Because their quarterback play is not going to be good. So, like from a theory standpoint, it makes sense to me that I would have Kenneth Walker or Rashad Penny in that scenario. Tyler Lockett would also be fine. Tyler Lockett would be good. And Noah Fant, like you could have 2 of those players. You don't need their quarterbacks. And then you look back and you got 2 Jets receivers, and then you got the Jets quarterback. And that could really work out. Or you could grab Michael Carter, to go with Elijah Moore. It doesn't have to be, grabbing Garrett Wilson. So say you're trying to make that stack. You don't want to feel forced to reach on Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson goes off the board and you're like, I'm going to throw Michael Carter on here. I think he's going to be involved in the passing game. And then I'm going to grab Zach Wilson. Now you got Zach Wilson, you got Michael Carter, and you got Elijah Moore, right? Or it could be Garrett Wilson, Michael Carter, Zach Wilson. So there are lots of ways to do it. The key is just, I love the thought process you're going through. It's just, how do you do that without, reaching? Because you want the rest of your roster to really look good too. And that when I see people start reaching and I look at it, I'm like, yeah, they got that stack. But then when I look at the rest of their team, I'm like, it sucks. Well, like they're never going to get the team through even to let that game.
That's what I was going to bring up is this tournament, the puppy is, the round 1 is weeks 1 through 14. So you have to get to the quarterfinals, which is week 15, and then advance to the semis in 16. And everyone looks at the finals week 17, but you got to get there, folks. And it's a very top heavy prize pool, 75,000 to first place, 40,000 to second, 25,000 to third, 20,000 to fourth, and it kind of goes down and down and down. And if you come in, 18,630th place, congratulations, you get $7. So that's what I'm shooting for. Get my money back, baby.
It's trying to break even.
Yeah. Oh, plus $2 right there. That'll buy me Red Bull down the line. So, well, good stuff, my man. I know we're going to do more of these as the season goes on. We'll do some Best Ball Mania drafts for $25. And as the stakes get higher, the hustle comes out guns a-blazing. We'll be doing whatever they throw at us here at Underdog. Just remember, folks, use promo code HUSTLE. We'll match your first-time deposit up to $100 at UnderdogFantasy.com. Dwain, good stuff, my man. I loved it.
You too, man. You too. Me too.
All right, folks. We'll talk to you soon. Remember to never get out hustled. See you later.